Hey guys, what's up? Today I have a number of invasions from Irithyll Dungeon, and I'm actually rocking the Gotthard Twinswords. In one of my previous videos, Sane I think had recommended using them to practice playing unlocked, and you'll see I do a little bit of unlocked play, probably not enough. I kind of, when I'm thinking about it and I'm focusing, then I start playing unlocked, but as soon as I stop, I kind of revert to my old ways. If I start getting pressured or if I have to focus on what I'm doing, I naturally kind of muscle memory takes over, and I start locking on. It's apparent right away this Phantom has some idea of what he's doing. And when we both go for the parry out of stun, I know for sure this is a guy that I gotta look out for. Try to space him carefully. In fact, I would say that has been the one thing that I've noticed the most about Gotthard. I used to use Gotthard a long time ago when I used to duel, but I probably hadn't used him in close to a year. The one thing, though, that's very apparent is it's really long, and especially at these lower soul levels. This here is soul level 57. The being able to space out other straight swords is really, really useful. I'm used to playing at these levels with the long sword, and the long sword is relatively short, kind of ironically named. If you're playing against somebody, especially like with the Irithyll straight sword, it can be really difficult to get good spacing against somebody like that. And this host here is kind of pissing me off because he obviously lost his Phantom. The Phantom is skilled and he is not. And so he's just going to kind of spam rolls here as long as he can get away with it until his buddy gets summoned back in. So I'm kind of trying to keep a ton of pressure on this guy so he can't resummon. I give him a bit of mock here for the roll spam. But this weapon's awesome. Now in Irithyll Dungeon, you don't really get to see, in my view, the full benefit of it. I don't use it two-handed very often, and although there's one space where I probably should have here coming up in a little bit, because it has an unparryable attack, and against parry kings, that's really invaluable. I think it's like the only straight sword in the game that has an attack that's not parryable. So the host here, you can see as soon as I come, and he switches to the Cestus, and the parry spam starts. So I'm really wary of this guy. And of course he's got his mage friend, and so I want to get rid of the mage as quickly as I can, but I'm trying to be really cautious here so he doesn't get a lucky parry on me, meaning he the host. And there's a number of lag spikes that occur when people are either entering or exiting the game. And you can see the host obviously throwing Chaos Bed Vestiges, and there's nothing worse than Chaos Bed Vestige spam when it's laggy. And there that invader made a classic error against Chaos Bed Vestiges. He started panicking and rolling, and that's the last thing you want to do. If somebody hits you with Chaos Bed Vestiges, they're looking for you to panic roll, or they're looking for you to panic heal, and either one they're going to punish with more Chaos Bed Vestiges. So you just kind of have to stand your ground and wait for them to start chucking it again, run out of FP, or you can get around a corner. And there I was trying to get around the corner and screwed up, and now I got to retreat. And this Phantom here, he's using the Boulder Heave, which is surprisingly effective. You never want to roll in at Boulder Heave because the hitbox for it is ridiculously large. I don't know that I've ever successfully rolled in against Boulder Heave, so now as a matter of practice, I always roll away from it, and that seems to work out pretty well. And there I went for the rolling attack against the host, and my lock-on switched over to the Phantom at the last second. It was so frustrating. But it turns out to not really matter because the Phantom's dead now, and I've got Mr. Hosty all to myself. And here we start with the Cestus spam again. At this point, I really should have switched to two-handed mode. And one thing is, this guy's using the Dark Hand, and I think most people don't get that much damage with it, but here he really does a lot of damage, and I wasn't paying very much attention, and suddenly realized I had like no health left. He easily could have killed me there. but I'm standing so close to him, which in a way I shouldn't be doing, but the only reason I'm doing it is because of all the parry spam, and I was hoping to get the backstab, but instead I noticed he was attacking out of stun, getting sloppy, and so I was able to put him away that way. But I was talking earlier about the reach on this weapon, and sometimes it surprises even me. And actually, I have a number of invasions as Aldrich Faithful. In fact, you can see I've got the Covenant on, so I was sort of mixing invasions here in the dungeon with summons as Aldrich Faithful. I'll probably have some of those in an upcoming video. And I think the Aldrich Faithful invasions demonstrate the reach of this weapon a little bit better. But here, my eyes on that Sunbro, because, you know, for him to be dressed up, and I can't think of the character's name, the preacher or whatever, and be using the spiked mace. I mean, that's not like an everyday sort of weapon here, and I take a golden opportunity there to have the host to myself for a few minutes, and I throw it away. And here I'm nervous about getting plunged attacks, so I'm kind of biding my time. But the reach on this weapon it's really astounding. And because this guy's using the spiked mace, it's not so much the weapon itself that I find threatening, it's the fact that nobody that's a scrub would use that weapon, especially not in the way that he's using it. It's a sign of a good player, and that's what's making me really nervous. And here he shows me that his flask is empty. At least I'm assuming that was for my benefit. And I would have been happy to have fought this guy straight up duel style. In fact, I would have kind of preferred to, but obviously the host isn't going to let that happen, and I don't really blame him. Another thing in addition, I mentioned that I've been using the Gotthard Twinswords. Most of my characters now have a light crossbow on them that I keep around at almost all times. And keeping this crossbow around has really helped a lot, like helped tons. And you'll see a couple times here where it really saved the day. So I know that the Sunbro here is ready to die. He doesn't have any more Estus. That's why he's not pursuing me very aggressively. He's probably just going to wait and see, and if the host gets in trouble, try to jump in and try to protect him. So in my mind, I'm already thinking I'm going to try and shoot him with the crossbow. And I see here the host is doing all kinds of things like hitting out a stun. So I switch over to my Llewellyn, and immediately you can tell his playstyle changes. So he's not an idiot. He's most likely a very good player. Just playing aggressively earlier because he could. And you can see when I don't have the shield out, he's freer with the rolling attacks. He'll attack out of stun. And he's using the Irithyll straight sword, which is a really fantastic weapon. I keep getting scared off of it because I look at the AR, but I think that's really the wrong way to look at it. And he does a really good job here because my stamina gets so low, and it surprises me. I don't watch my stamina bar very closely usually. I just kind of have a sixth sense of how much stamina I have, and I got surprised there at not having any, and I realized it's because he had frostbitten me, which slows your stamina recovery. But not only when you get frostbitten, your stamina recovers more slowly. You take bonus damage. I think it's an extra 7% of damage. And what's interesting is when you get frostbitten, it takes a percentage of your health off plus some flat amount, which I think is like 80 or 85 points, which is one of the reasons that weapon is such a killer at low soul levels. 85 points HP alone could easily be 20-25% of somebody's health at low levels. So I may have to give that weapon a try. But here the crossbow just does work for me. This guy had tried to parry me once before. Now he's got a medium shield, so I'm not too worried about getting parried by him. But it's definitely something I'm thinking about. And because he was being careful when I had the Llewellyn out, it's unlikely I was going to get some easy parry off this guy. And I'm definitely not a parry spammer. So if I can't get a clean read, I'm not going to bother. But having a crossbow against somebody like this, it really gives them something else to think about. You know, even when they're out of straight sword melee range, that's not enough. They've got to constantly be mindful of that other weapon that you've got, and it gives them a lot that they've got to keep track of. Plus, at these levels, the explosive bolt damage, which usually ends up being about 130 points of damage, it's nothing to sneeze at. That's a lot of damage. So I cut out quite a bit of this invasion. It took me a while to catch up to this party. And initially here, I only see the White Phantom. And unfortunately, I didn't get here quickly enough to catch them dealing with most of the enemies here. There's a few left. But this guy's pretty good. He's got a bit of a problem here. He's got two of these enemies and me chasing after him. The host is nowhere to be found. I'm not sure where the host actually is. He gets me with a turn and burn, which I was not expecting. He's obviously watching me as he's walking because he's able to roll my straight sword attacks on reaction. Here he kind of gets pushed into a corner. He doesn't really panic. He rolls out cleanly. And there I was going to try to get him the attacking out of stun, parry, but I didn't have time. And so this is critical right here. He's running away. I know he's going to heal, so I switch over to the crossbow and I finish him off. And fortunately I did because the host was right there around the corner. And if he had gotten off that heal, I most likely would not have won this invasion. It's almost, at this point, it's almost a formality putting the host away. So this invasion is actually the primary invasion for which I was making this video. It's quite a lengthy one. This invasion actually, it's funny how like if something happens a lot and then it stops happening, you sometimes don't realize that it stopped happening until it happens again, and then you realize like, oh shit, this used to happen all the time. Well, it used to happen a lot where when you invaded somebody, they would just keep resummoning and resummoning and resummoning. And I think that stopped for a number of reasons. One, you don't have the same kind of noobs playing the game anymore that are as likely to rely on that strategy. Two, you don't have nearly as many summon signs from which to choose from. And three, From's made some changes to nerf that a little bit, so you can't just keep resummoning forever and ever like you used to be able to. Although my understanding is with password summon phantoms, that rule might be a little bit different, and obviously a lot of these are password summoned. So this guy's using the Murakumo against me, which is a good weapon, but he's not doing very many running R1s. He's doing mostly standing R1s, and when you do that and you just keep pressing R1 even after the person rolls out, it makes it easy for the other person to space you out and attack you. At least when there's just you. When there's other players, it's a little bit different. So obviously we got two players, a third Phantom's on the way, or rather a second Phantom joining the host for a total of 3 players. This is actually, in my view, one of the best places to invade, especially if you have to deal with a bunch of gankers or gonkers. The PvE in this section here is okay, but the PvE, and I think that was an accidental jump. I'm not sure why I did that. The PvE in this kind of immediate area is definitely strong, and it's good. And that was a dumb panic roll on my part. But when we get up here to the Fire Witches, that is by far one of the best locations in the game for invaders. I would say that and probably the Grand Archives are the two in the main game that are best. And then obviously you have like the staircase with all the Herald Knights in the Ring City, and that's pretty awesome. But unfortunately, because the Herald Knights can attack invaders, they won't target you, but they can attack you. That's the one thing kind of against that area that just makes it a little bit not as hard on hosts. If the Herald Knights could not attack invaders there, that area would be almost impossible for hosts. So obviously here I'm just standing kind of at the edge of the Fire Witch's attack range, and I had successfully baited these guys into range to aggro them. And those fire attacks that come out of the ground are just amazing. And there I use a very infrequent L1, but when you bust those out and you don't use them very often, they can really surprise, and I was able to put that Sunbro away using that attack. And that L1 is so awesome. I mean, there's a reason that noobs spam it. It's such a good attack. Even now, with it being nerfed, it's still really, really strong. That parry attempt kind of threw me off there. And I would be having a much easier time with this Phantom here if he weren't so laggy. There's a number of times where he's kind of lagged out and hasn't had a proper animation for his attacks, and he's caught me off guard. And here I'm thinking about going for a setup parry against this guy. And so I'm holding my shield out to see how he reacts. And unfortunately, right as I'm about to go for the setup parry, the blue shows up. Yorms is one of those weapons where when you fight a single player with it, and assuming they don't have something like a S stock in their offhand or in their main hand, it's really not that difficult a weapon. But in a gank situation, it gets pretty terrifying. It's right about this moment when I notice that the host isn't around. And I'm assuming at this point he's probably back at the bonfire looking to summon somebody. There the PvE handles the blue for me, which is good. I was out of Estus. I'm finally able to get the setup parry on this guy. There it is. There's the new Phantom coming in. So now I'm realizing, like, this host is just going to keep resummoning as much as he possibly can. These sorts of situations were so commonplace early on in the game's life. And there I was going to go for the attack out of stun parry and finish him off. if that Sunbro had been even about 3 seconds later to the party, I would have been able to end the invasion right there. This is the same Sunbro that he had in earlier. At this point I realize, like, I just don't have very much Estus. In fact, there goes my last one. And I start thinking about it. If I keep fighting the Sunbro, at a minimum, he's going to delay me long enough that this host is going to be able to resummon another Phantom. So I decide to break contact with him and head back to the bonfire. And my hope is I can get there and kill the host quickly enough before the Sunbro can get there and do anything about it. Sometimes the host is swinging 3 times, but sometimes he's not. And sometimes it seems like he's looking for me to try to parry because he'll go for like an R2 or something. And I've decided now for this invasion that I'm going to go ahead and use some Seek Brows. I normally don't, but I'm going to make an exception here. My guess is the host is either low enough on Estus, or he's concerned for some reason. He's not joining in the gank for whatever reason. Maybe because he's trying to summon somebody else. Yeah, there's that R2. And that's what makes me nervous about trying to parry this guy. Obviously here the Phantom's out of FP. And I really keep expecting that attack out of stun, but it's not coming. Here, the fact that he's switching to something offhand, you can tell he's thinking about what he's doing. Trying to do mix-ups with the R2 instead of the R1. He's definitely cognizant of the parry risk here. And there he made a mistake. He did the back step into R1, and I'd seen him do that a couple other times, and when he did the back step, I knew he was going to be out of range for the running attack, and I was able to punish it. And there I'm able to finally put the host down. And I decided to break out the all too rare point down just for all the resummoning. Thanks for checking in, guys. Take care.